I had time last week. I had time. I was like, man, it's been a while since I was on social media engaging with people. I'm fired up about this topic. I'm going to engage with y'all all day. I was at the hair salon, captive audience. I'm like, I'm going to keep answering all y'all. I'm going to read all y'all. And then I tapped out because I just want to and can. Mm-hmm. And when I tap back in today, because apparently I am the face of woke WNBA, pro WNBA, anti Caitlin Clark rhetoric, which is laughable if anyone actually listened to the podcast. Everyone wants for me to answer for what happened this weekend when the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark faced the Chicago Sky. Of course, this was dubbed as the Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark game, but it very quickly became the Kennedy Carter versus Caitlin Clark game for what was absolutely an unnecessary flagrant foul. A shoulder check, a hip check, whatever you want to call it, off ball that had nothing to do with the play and was not important to the play. And because this happens, here we go again. They're all targeting her. They want to hurt her. They hate her. There's a vendetta against Caitlin Clark. And it's situations like this, Gary, that I get so frustrated about because it goes back to exactly what I said last week. To answer for all of you who are in my mentions right now. First of all, a little gaslighting on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. I will respond to you whenever I feel like it. And now is when I feel like it. You are proving my point. I asked you last week to do just a modicum of research, just a little bit of research before you just go every single time to that same gaslighting dog whistle of all these bitter Bettys hate Caitlin Clark. And then anytime you see a situation like this, you go, see, here's some evidence. But if you did a little bit of research, then you would know that Kennedy Carter's behavior and decisions made in the moment have been a topic of discussion in the past on a few different occasions in the WNBA, all right? Like, this is not new to people who know the WNBA, that Kennedy Carter has been the topic of said conversation a lot, right? And instead, yet again, you want to make her actions, which, by the way, were unnecessary and were upgraded to a flagrant one, not a flagrant two, a flagrant one. Her actions are her actions, specifically, singularly. But yet again, you want to make what she did a referendum on the entire league. And that's where the frustration comes from. And that's why I put my head in my hands when I saw Kennedy did that, because I'm like, here we go. You are giving fire to this, or you're giving fuel to this unnecessary fire. Nobody said that Alyssa Thomas was out to get Angel Reese when she very clearly, flagrant two, grabbed her and threw her to the ground and was ejected from the game. No one came to Angel Reese's defense. Not a single person, because the narrative has already been decided amongst some Caitlin Clark fans that everyone hates her and the confirmation bias is there. Now, every time she gets hit in a moving screen or every time she gets a flagrant foul, which happens, guys, it's professional basketball. It now gives you what you think is more evidence to the fact that she is not liked league-wide and there is some widespread vendetta to hurt her. And that is just categorically false. And I do not change what I said at all last week. I stand by it. And in fact, I think this is exactly what I was talking about. Do research, Gary. Stop it. Quit. The bigger question is, why did no one on her team do anything about it? Why didn't anyone jump to her defense? Why didn't anyone get in Kennedy Carter's face and say, we're not doing that? That, to me, is the question. And you know what Caitlin Clark ultimately did? Got the last laugh by winning. It was fantastic. And instead of talking about that, we are continuing this narrative that the women of the WNBA don't like her. And when Draymond Green chokes out Yusuf Nurkic, nobody says Draymond Green is anti-Eastern European. They literally put it on the shoulders of Draymond Green. And they say Draymond is a problem and he has emotional issues and he needs to get control of himself. And they make it about Draymond's behavior. But instead of making it about Kennedy Carter's behavior, you make it about everyone. More evidence. And that's the worst part of all this, is the new fans are sucking the life out of the WNBA right now. It's just the truth. You are right. You are right, new fans. There has never been more viewership because of Caitlin Clark. There's never been more attention. They're doing 40 minutes on First Take about Caitlin Clark. They never did that before, as Monica McNutt called out. You're right. But you know what there was in the WNBA last year and the years prior? There was other storylines. There was joy. There was talk of competition. There was talk of what was actually happening on the court. And all there is right now is a culture war. It is a them versus you, a you versus them. There is othering. It is gross. It is not fun. It is not engaging. The WNBA Twitter space used to be one of the most fun. And now it has become a place where racists get to get off their takes, where people get to feel attacked, where randos who have literally no idea anybody else's name in the entire W come to attack the other W. It's not fun. And while these women that are playing in the league appreciate so much the growth and the expansion and all of those things, undoubtedly they do. You got to wonder, Gary, at some point if they're going, oh my God, we literally can't talk about anything else. And not talk about anything else like we're spending too much time talking about how great Caitlin is. We are spending too much time talking about her as a victim and not talking about her play and talking about what happens to rookies in every professional sport and how they earn their respect and how they chip back and how they stand up and how they fight back and how they grow. There was a whole entire movement over the summer on Twitter called My WNBA Moment, where W players highlighted how they got their first reality check in the W. And like half the tweets, Gary, were like, oh, Diana Taurasi like elbowed me in the stomach after she told me she was a big fan. Like that was my welcome to the W moment. This is professional basketball. And this is a reminder that in general, women do have enforcers and they've got goons and they've got people who make problematic decisions. And all of those things can be true. And it can also be true that they are not specifically targeting Caitlin. And it's the exceptionalism that is bothering me. It's the idea that we have placed her so far on a pedestal that we believe she should not even face any of the rigors that comes with being a rookie. Kennedy Carter aside, y'all lost me when 3 weeks ago, when she gets caught up in a screen and you say they're targeting her. Like it's the boy who cried wolf. So when situations like Kennedy Carter do happen, where it was clearly unnecessary and flagrant, we're so busy going, yeah, but you guys think everything's flagrant. You think every time she's fouled hard, they're purposely trying to hurt her. And like, that's the problem, Gary, is that there's no nuance in this situation anymore. So I'm done waiting for the next time because she's going to get fouled again, guys. Hard. It's going to happen. It happened against the Liberty in the blowout. She got fouled hard. She hurt herself. She came out. She came back in and kept playing. And every single time it happens, we're going to revisit this. And I see this happening the rest of the year. And it's honestly making the idea of talking about the W at this point exhausting. I'm already exhausted. And we're a quarter of the way through the season. Not even. We're like a fifth of the way through the season. And I can tell you most pundits are just already over it. They're over it.
It's getting to be a lot. We're 10 games into a 40-game season. So yeah, we're a quarter of the way through, and you're right. And I will say, we come from the sports center ecosystem where obviously we show the highlights, and yes, we showed what happened with 15 seconds left in the third quarter where Kennedy Carter hip checked her out of nowhere, was only called in away from the ball foul, eventually got corrected, upgraded, and a fine came with. But on the back end of that, we're showing the actual basketball storylines here where the Fever winning their first home game of the season and Caitlin Clark's sort of tear through her rookie campaign through her first couple of games with the 150 points and 50 rebounds and 50 assists and the category that she's in right there. I will have to say, Ellen, obviously I hear you on all of that stuff. And if we're looking at this situation in a vacuum, that's cool and that's fine. And I understand earning your respect in any field, WNBA, sports, professional field, no matter what, you have to earn your respect. That doesn't mean you deserve to be treated a certain type of way because you are the bell cow or because you might perceive this person as being this this entity who might be getting this unjust coverage because you were this darling in Division One. So if we looked at it in a vacuum, I'd be like, all right, cool. But then what Kennedy Carter said or didn't say after the game, the way Angel Reese did react during the game, coming off the bench, and then after that game, refused to talk to reporters
Yeah.
about that, even though we build it. And we had Angel Reese on SportsCenter, Amina Smith and I, ahead of that game, we had the SportsCenter that led into it. So she joined SportsCenter before the game, but didn't speak to media after the game. I don't know if it was because it got caught on camera of her immediately after the hip check, whatever. That's neither here nor there, but it adds fuel to the speculation, right? And then you
No,
have,
it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You know
why
why?
not?
Because they don't like each other. What? Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are enemies. Like they're rivals. They are Magic and Larry Bird. Like they don't fuck with each other. They have not since college. They can kiki and smile at the WNBA draft because they all were forced to be in those rooms together.
Sure.
They don't like each other like that. They are on court rivals. Should Angel have reacted that way? No, that was bad sportsmanship. But again, that is not a referendum on everyone in the W. It's not an excuse to generalize 142 other players because Kennedy Carter did some knucklehead bullshit and then Angel Reese cheered it. That's two. Stop it. Like that's my problem. They keep going to the well of Angel Reese. They don't like each other. What else do you want? They don't like each other.
They don't. And Angel
They don't like
Reese,
each other.
correct. Totally understand that. But now all of a sudden we have basically a Meek Mill mixtape. You've probably seen it on Twitter with Coach Sides being like, all we can do is clip every single one of these instances, whether it was from Victoria Vivian's with the Seattle Storm or all of the other hard foul tie-ups throughout the first 10 games of the season. And it's like a 4-minute montage of Caitlin Clark getting bullied. And trust me, I totally hear that hard defenses and hard one-on-ones and fouling is going to happen. Hands are going to go everywhere. But we have like mixtape compilations now. You know what I'm saying? Under like dreams and nightmares of Caitlin Clark getting absolutely bamboozled. You know, she leads all rookies by like what, 15 fouls. And of course, she handles the ball more than other rookies. She's one of the highest scoring guards in the WNBA. So obviously that's going to heighten the propensity, but we can't completely say that there isn't some segment of the WNBA. And of course, Kennedy Carter coming afterwards being like, what has she brought other than 3-point shooting? Well, she leads in assists. She leads in rebounds for rookies. She's brought a lot. She's brought the ability to have, chartered flights and elevated prominence with marketing and things like that, more viewership.
Yes, and
She's
Kennedy
brought a lot
Carter
of
is
that.
being a hater. She's being a
For
hater.
sure.
I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I am saying the generalization that the W, and that's my problem, Gary, and that's the rant I went on last week.
Yeah.
There was no specific circumstances. It was the women, the girls of the W, the league. That's my issue. You are literally generalizing an entire group of women because of the actions of a few. And frankly, Caitlin Clark is a generational talent, which is, if you heard Sabrina Ionescu yesterday say, that is why she is guarded and defended so tough. That's what we have to throw our best at her because she is that good. Yep. Okay, that is the respect they're showing her. But I watched some of that mixtape, and some of that is her getting hit on moving screens. Some of that is her getting checked hard. Yes, absolutely. A couple of those things, like in the Chicago Sky game, the quarter before was a flop. I'm just saying that it was. All I'm saying is there is nuance to this situation, and I'm tired of men painting this league as if they are just filled with bitter betties. That's my problem, okay? Of course there's going to be some pettiness. It's sports. Of course there's going to be some ugliness. It's sports. Of course there's going to be some flagrant that was unnecessary and some unsportsmanlike shit. It's sports, okay? It's not women's sports. It is sports. That exists everywhere. I talk more shit playing cornhole in my backyard. Like, this is sports, and that's how it works. And I'm just sick of every single time now someone hard fouls her, because it does happen, you guys. She's not the biggest thing in the world. She's going to have to gain, like that happened. She's going to gain weight. She's going to gain muscle. Aaliyah Boston put on like 27 pounds of muscle from last year. Like, that's how it works. You get stronger. You get tougher. You're able to handle more abuse. Like, that's basketball. That's basketball. And if we did this to anyone else, if we took any other generational type of talent and looked at their rookie campaign and looked at how people defended them, if they were men, I know we would not be doing this. We would not be begging and imploring people to protect them. We wouldn't.
Well, you might be getting the LeBron James rule or the superstar rule or the all-star rule from above. I'm talking like from the commission's office in terms of like, hey, somebody, whether it's the Fever having to bring on a goon, right, or an enforcer, because Aaliyah Boston watching that from the baseline and like not immediately chirping, right, Kennedy Carter after that happened. You need to do something to combat that. We see that in other sports. You mentioned the Draymond Green element. You have to have something to combat that from the Fever, because I understand what we're saying about, all right, there's women who we can't generalize the women in the WNBA by casting this wide net as to say all of them dislike Caitlin Clark. Well, what about the 10 that are on her team that have yet to come to her defense in any of these situations? So I'm not going to generalize the Fever not liking her, but if the 10 other people who are wearing your same jerseys aren't coming to your defense when you're seeing flagrant, blatant stuff like this happen, then we have an issue.
I just think that I think the outrage is so performative. I do. I think it's so performative because nobody gives a damn when she has a tough game. They don't care to break down the analysis. When she has a great game, they don't care to break down the analysis. When you talk about how much she's grown, when you talk about the fact they've played 10 games in 20 days, which is brutal.
Which
It
is
is
that's
brutal.
OD. Every time I
It's
walk into the studio, I'm
brutal.
like, damn, we got another Fever highlight.
It's
You know,
brutal,
I'm
bruh.
like, are
Like
we
it
showing the
is so.
same one?
That's who's beating Caitlin Clark up, the league.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the people who programmed and scheduled this, they're the ones that are beating her up. Like they are tied. They looked so gassed against the Liberty.
Yeah.
She couldn't even like none of them could get a shot off. They were all short. Like nobody. It's performative, Gary, because none of this ever makes the beginning of shows, the A block of shows. I never get tweeted at by Caitlin Clark fans when it comes to talking about how she's actually playing. The only time that at this point that Caitlin Clark is trending is to talk about her somehow getting attacked, abused, bitter. The W is mad at her. They hate her. They're jealous of her. Like that is the prevailing headline. It is always the prevailing headline. It is never about anything else. In fact, the idea that instead of talking about her hitting the game winner and then ripping through a montage of how many game winners she hit in college, which is what I would have done with that information, we go right to this and only this. And then we're still talking about this and not talking about the game against the Liberty, which was a total they laid an egg, the Fever did. But also look how dominant the Liberty looked. And like, look how great Benaja did in defending her and not defending her in a dirty way. Like none of these things ever make your A block or your Twitter timeline when it's simply talking about the actual play of Caitlin Clark. It's only when you want to gaslight. It's only when you want to try to aha someone, when you want to do whataboutism. Like that's the only time most of these people are talking about Caitlin Clark. And that's why I think it's incredibly performative. If you are a real fan, if you really support Caitlin Clark and what she's attempting to do and what she's already doing in the WNBA, why aren't you talking about how she's actually playing? Why is it only in an effort to minimize and to deject an entire rest of the league? That's the only time they're talking about it. And that's my issue with it. That's my problem, Gary. That's it. Is that it feels performative. There is no rampant, widespread jealousy. There just isn't. There isn't. And you want to cherry pick some cases? Sure. I don't put that above anybody. Of course, there's always jealousy in every league. There's pettiness, there's bitterness, there's this, there's that. Of course, it involves in sports because they're just filled with people. But I will not, and I refuse to adopt because I've been in these rooms. I've been in more rooms with WNBA players than Jim Rat 37 on fucking Twitter has. And I can tell you, behind closed doors, they respect her, appreciate her, and are appreciative of all the things that she's done. But respect is also earned. They are professional athletes. They're not, I think Bomani said, and he said it best, they're not shareholders, they're colleagues. They don't own a stock in the Caitlin Clark business. Is she helping with expansion and growth? And of course she is. And they've recognized that. But this idea that you Caitlin Clark fans are caping for Caitlin, you don't care. You're not a real fan. You're not, because you don't give a damn what's happening on the actual court. You don't care about her growth. You don't talk about her when she does great things. You don't examine her game. You only watch so you can wait and see if someone fouls her too hard, so you can run to Twitter and accuse the WNBA again of being bitter and needing to do something. It's pathetic. And I see through all y'all, which is why I don't give a shit about answering any of you clowns on social media, because you're not real fans.